in kind of my growing and my learning through this is that there is the capacity to flourish even when the odds are stacked against you. You know, it's like even when they're
That's another
one nuggets. I got more nuggets.
Those eggs of knowledge.
Don't you eat any of the chocolate over there.
Scene 1.
I could feel the vibration. Is that 2 blue steel?
Oh man, so this is my first episode. I don't know, I'm going to record a bunch of them before I release them, so I don't know if this will come out as the first one, but I'm at least telling you, you're my first guest.
Cool.
I'm super excited, and honestly, if I'm being honest, I made a short list of ideas of who I could talk to for this, and you were like just number one on the list of cool people I know whose story I wanted to share.
The international man of mystery.
It's so true. So true. So as I had talked to you behind the scenes, I'm doing this little side project, Life Simulated. Still on the fence of whether it's going to be simulated, simulation. Not sure. One of those three. Yeah, it's life simulated. Like we're always in this training program of something like life without ever necessarily feeling like we've gotten where we're supposed to get. So that's what I want to talk to people about.
That's cool.
Yeah, awesome. So did you remember what year it was that you got your first tattoo? I know I was still in the room with Dave.
Yeah. So I know it was during my first year of university, and if it was either 2009 or 2010, I'm kind of thinking it was post Christmas, which would have put us into 2010.
I bring this up because we've had a bit of I won't say a sordid past, but we've known each other for a while.
Yeah.
And who you are today versus who that person was that I first met could not be further on the scale of a human being, I feel.
Yeah, no kidding. So
I remember you, and I've been struggling with how to word this without sounding like an asshole.
Yeah.
But you were not the ray of sunshine you are today. It wasn't your first tattoo. We were doing a cover up.
Yeah.
And
no, it was my first tattoo.
Yeah.
We're covering.
We later covered it up.
Yes.
That's what I'm remembering, right?
Yeah.
You were, we'll say, I guess, nervous about it.
Absolutely.
And what did I say to you about it when you were worried about the pain?
Oh, I asked if it would hurt, and you said, well, not as much as that probably did.
Which was a self-harm scar.
Yeah.
Apparently, I was also not the ray of sunshine I am today.
Yeah, you really wrapped me in empathy and compassion with that one, I think.
Yeah, that was, I don't know what the deal was with that, but I remember, I don't know why it sticks out in my memory so much, but I remember you at that first person, and I thought you seemed unhappy. You weren't a particularly positive person. And I mean, I didn't spend that much time with you, in fairness. It was a small tattoo. But then you came back some years later, and I could not get over the difference. You had come out at that point as gay. And from there, I don't even know how many times I've tattooed you at this point, but every time I saw you, it was like you were just getting stronger and more unstoppable and more of the person you wanted to be. And it was like just watching my favorite show.
Wait, when's our next appointment? Come back in.
Honest to God, like every time I saw you from there on, and like I said, I wish I knew the time increments in between because I was in a different job. I don't have access to those records anymore.
Yeah.
But from that first person I met you at to the person you are now has been such a monumental and incredible and inspiring journey. I couldn't not talk to you in this format about people who are living their life simulation and where it has led you.
Yeah.
So with that brief background, I got to read your bio, obviously, that you sent me, which is incredible. And one of the things that I love is that you never finished university, and you're like Still excelling. I mean, lots of people do drop out. I barely made it through high school, and not because I was a bad student, but because I didn't learn well in that environment. I got out of it and into a specialized school doing art with small classes in a direct field I was good at. I excelled. So I went from barely graduating high school to like almost a 4-point GPA in university. Looking back, if you had to tell high school me that I was ever going to run a business, let alone multiple businesses, or have any kind of platform to help people, I would have just laughed. That there's no way. And here you are doing the same.
It's really interesting, the point you just make about like when you are in the environment where you're able to like be yourself or do the things that bring you joy, how you can like really flourish. And I think when I look at you too, it's funny. I think a lot of times when you think about a tattoo artist, you very much like would pigeonhole that person in terms of who they are and what they're going to do. And like you just said, I mean, similarly, you're always doing something new. I'm like, oh, okay, she's doing this now. So I can totally get that.
I remember when you had said you were doing the TEDx Youth Talk St. John's. And I thought, oh man, there is nobody better to deliver that. And your topic, you said, was how male privilege made me a feminist. That's incredible. And, that's something I've never touched on with you about the different perspective of the person you were and how you were treated and the world viewed you till now. Especially from, I'm struggling with what to say, to female to male. Have you noticed, do you find you have more opportunities or people are more open now or you get a certain different treatment as a male?
It's, it's really interesting. I've actually been reflecting on that talk a fair bit as of late because we're in a TED cycle again right now, and I'm currently like a volunteer. I coach in it. But the other thing that I've been thinking about a lot is right now we're seeing in the cycle of social media a lot of discussion about women's safety walking home as a result of the Sarah Everard case. Talking about like, I've seen the post about, women telling other women to let me know when you're home safe or all that stuff. And I think that when I think about my talk and what even inspired that talk, it was actually a moment very similar to what's circulating right now, which is not necessarily anything where there's a threat to my safety, but I've been bartending at the time. And this was like very shortly after I started my transition. And I can remember it was late. I was coming home from work and I was like doing my usual thing. I had my keys like stuck through here. I was running quickly. And I remember thinking to myself, like, my God, like I am a grown ass man. Why am I afraid? And then it was like, hold the phone. First of all, I can't believe that I think I need to be tough because I'm a guy. Secondly, wow, my whole life I've been conditioned to avoid dark, scary places, to call my friend, to cross the street, to do whatever. And now I'm just having this moment where I'm realizing that like, because I am read and seeing differently, I have greater access to safety. I can walk around at night and enjoy that privilege without having to worry, about the repercussions. So that one's been on my mind a lot, and that's one of a million examples that I have of that kind of stuff.
I love how open you've been about your journey. Like right from the beginning, even your journey through like training for the Canada Games. And I mean, my favorite was when you were bodybuilding because you were like, I won't say struggling up the stairs at the shop we used to work at. You're just like, my body is so heavy from all this mass. And what you had to eat like 4,000 calories a day, that was my friggin' dream. Somebody would tell me you need to eat instead of like, you got to keep it around 1,500 if you think you're going to drop 8 pounds. And that's Tyson and I have the exact opposite problem. It's hilarious. So his job, he's literally walking all day, every day, weighted. So he cannot even maintain the weight he has on, let alone put any muscle mass on. And I'm like licking an almond, hoping it'll fill me up because I'm trying to stay under a like amount of right? The contrast is crazy. But I did the same thing to him. I remember when you came in that day and you were just like, I just peanut butter on everything, trying to get calories into bodybuild.
Yeah, you know, it's really funny. It's so funny. We're really overlapping here. Like I'm trying to work on my website for my speaking career, and I came across this video of myself lecturing at a social work class a couple of years ago. Like my neck was so thick, and I was like, oh my god, you know, like you're right. And even just like my face, it was all one. And you know, it's so funny. Everyone, including myself, wants to eat 4,000 or 5,000 calories, and it's like, when it's like your favorite foods, it's like awesome, you know? But when it's like half a kilogram of sweet potatoes or something, it's like not as much of a good time anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember like being up, you know, going to bed. I was on this plan when I was doing this. I had like 6 meals a day or something. And my partner, Carla, it would be like 11 o'clock. And I might have just eaten the last meal like an hour prior, because it was like, you know, they're building up over the day. And when you're at that point, you're actually eating like past the point of comfort. You're like forcing yourself to eat, and just like lying in bed, and Carla being like, I really want to go to sleep. Can you please finish eating? So been in many senses of myself along the way. And it's, you know, the bodybuilding thing is funny because I think that, again, and you talk about this, you know, this experience of going from like female to male and all the different perspectives. I also had this idea that as a man that I had to be this like huge, muscular beefcake, strong, tough. And I worked really hard at it. I made a lot of sacrifices to try and make that happen. And it's really incredible how dominant like the narrative of gender roles can be and how it can really influence us.
100%. And that's honestly, I never thought about that unique perspective you have, like you said, walking home at night or fear of safety and things like that, until we had this conversation, because we had a lot of conversations, and I feel like I'm bouncing all over the place. My apologies. I got to rein it in. But to go back to what a great speaker you are, I loved how you took everybody publicly on your journey. Like, that's a big deal. You're going through a lot of like existential things, and imagine with like your loved ones or your friends or people that have known you before your transition and going through it with you. Why did you decide to, like, I don't want to say walk people through it, but be so public about it?
It's really interesting.
To be clear.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it was ever a conscious decision. It kind of unfolded a certain way. Like initially, I remember when I first came out, because I can remember it very clear. I mean, of course, it was a very important moment in my life. But I still remember when I wrote that post on Facebook and put it out there. And I think that, you know, it was to inform, but part of it was also to protect. Because, you know, in a lot of the research that I had done when I was trying to figure out, like, what the hell was going on, a lot of the literature that I came across was, you know, people talking about the bad outcomes, the crisis. And all of that is so true. I mean, we know, you know, anybody who's kind of engaged in awareness around trans experience knows that there's a lot of violence, inequity, oppression, and so on. And so this was all I was seeing. So I, you know, was coming into the world saying, okay, this is me. I'm, you know, trying to accept me, having to come out to myself, and knowing that I was likely to experience this violence from people. And I say violence on the spectrum of like, not just physical, but like being harmful toward me, you know, emotionally, verbally, whatever. So that was kind of how it started. It was like, this is what's up. If you're down with it, like, come along. If you're not, peace. And after that, I think it just kind of really blew up, because I was, at the time, you know, I came out, I think it was 2014. I ended up getting top surgery January of 2016. So this period of time between late 2014, so basically we'll say all of 2015, leading up to my surgery, I was doing a lot of advocacy, because at the time, the access to surgery here in Newfoundland was, the way that it was organized was MTP, it was kind of like there was like a lot of like loopholes, and even though they had something on paper, it wasn't really accessible. And the way it was looking was that I would have had to be on like a 5 to 8 year wait list. No guarantees for approval, and what the province covered was just the mastectomy, so just the removal of the breast tissue, but not any sort of reconstruction. So and that is different now, which I'm really happy about, and there have been some, you know, incredible trailblazers along the way. I know Blair Curtis, who is from my hometown, was a big part of that, as well as Kai Reese, who advocated a lot regarding gender-related surgery here in the province. But at the time, bringing that to the media to try and get pressure on was what I felt like was a good course of action. And that just like really garnered all this public attention. And, you know, thankfully that also helped me do a lot of crowdfunding, and I was able to pay for this private surgery, which, you know, ran me $8,000. However, it's almost like, you know, I feel like I just like ripped it open, and then here I was out in the public. And so I've just been kind of rolling with it since then.
You certainly have. Like, did you have speaking engagements before you came out as a trans man?
No.
That's where it really kicked off for you.
Yeah. I was actually just putting together my CV last night or the night before, and I was looking, and it's just like dead stop at 2016. And that was that year that I did the TEDx talk. Like before I did the TEDx talk, I had done like a couple little like kind of what I would call like piddly school visits, but nothing of like great consequence there. I mean, and I don't say that to invalidate how it was for them, the people who were in my audience at that time, but I wasn't like an experienced or developed speaker. After the TEDx talk, and, you know, combining that with me being a bit of a familiar face and having some media access points already, that was just what really did it for me. And yeah,
I mean, it was a huge deal. If you're going to leap off speaking, that's the place that you do it.
Yeah.
And I have seen, I've tried to follow as well as I could from another province of all the different speaking engagements and things you've been a part of. And I mean, it's incredible. Like, I just want to touch on a few here. So yeah, the TED Talk was in 2016. Yeah. So you've been a public speaker for about 5 years. You're a Lululemon ambassador. Like, let's talk about that. That's huge. Not to mention now currently a member of their ambassador advisory board for IDEA, which is inclusion, diversity, equity, and action.
Yeah.
That's an incredible opportunity. How did that come to be? Is that something you applied for? Did they seek you out?
Yeah, so that was a very recent appointment. I actually just found out about a week ago. I think it's kind of cool. Like, the networking within Lululemon is very interesting. So how it kind of happened, or I don't even really know how it happened, because I find Lululemon is also very vague. And I mean that like in like this like fun, surprise, exciting kind of way. Like, I've just been invited to so many things and not really known what's going on until I've gotten there. And so I think that's kind of how it happened, because I have, first of all, the store manager really kind of like curates and contributes to this experience that I have as an ambassador. So she, I think, is really looking to see what opportunities are available for me. And she often says she is like the Dane fan club. And I think that's very true, because she often is like, hey, I know someone who's like really great for this. So in 2019, which was just shortly after my ambassadorship started, I got an opportunity to go to what they call Global Ambassador Summit. So they take 100 ambassadors by nomination from around the globe, and they all go to Whistler and Vancouver for like 3 to 4 days for like a lot of networking, personal development, and also just like to rest, because the idea is that like if you are kind of elevated like this in your community, you're probably really busy. So we're here to like appreciate you. So but I think that was my first crack at it. I you know, of course, got up, took the mic when I was there in some sharing time. And I think I really resonated with a lot of people. And then this last summer, I was part of a global campaign on the Lululemon page called Stories of Pride, where we got to collaborate with a storytelling collective called Moth, which is based in the United States. So I think and again, this was like a nomination thing that the store manager was like, yo, you need to go check this out and apply. So, you know, next thing you know, my store manager, she only called me, it was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago now. She said, like, we got this like really important thing. Can you be free for a meeting on Monday? I was like, sure. And this was honestly kind of how I got flown to Vancouver too. They're like, oh, this cool thing's happening. We're going to fly you up. I was like, okay, like, I don't know where I'm going. So yeah, so they asked me to do this thing. And I think it's really cool because they're being very active in listening about making some changes. And, you know, for a corporation that has a lot of reach and has also come under fire, like many large corporations have, it's cool to see, you know, I like this IDEA, like the action part of it, because I think it's very easy for many of us to consume a lot of literature. And I think that's a great start, but I really like that they're trying to put something behind the learning that they're taking on.
Absolutely. And I mean, diversity is so important in that kind of environment right now. So it's great to see them including that in going forward in what they're doing. So I can't wait to follow along with what you're doing there.
Yeah.
We're going to get to your entrepreneurship, but before I hit that, I want to go back to high school.
Yeah.
What did you think you were like? Where were you at in high school? How did you get from high school to where you are now?
Oh man, I definitely didn't expect this. It's so funny. I joked with you when we were talking about this on the pre-call. Like, I definitely didn't think I was going to grow up to be a man.
Yeah, that was not on my radar. And that's part of what I really enjoyed about you sharing your journey, which we talked about, was when you were posting these side-by-side pictures of you. And I mean, you're not short. I'm 5'9", and I know you're at least my height. Are you 5'9"?
Yeah.
And it was like you in mini skirts, the silky hair, the high heels, the makeup, and then you into your transition. It was like, whoa.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's very incredible.
Yeah, when I left high school, I went off to Memorial University on a scholarship for music school with my trombone.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I feel like when you and I met, I was like I was on the bitter end of, I was just switching programs because I had a dismal first semester. Music school is bananas. Like, I got a lot of respect for people who get through it, because you're, on top of a full course load, like you're practicing for your own like solo performances, any ensemble stuff, whatever. It's a lot. And so I honestly, like, when I was in grade 12, I was in student council, and we had this like, the last semi-formal of the year was the night before the math placement exam. And I didn't want to give up my fun time. So I asked my mom if she did math in music school, and she said no. So I was like, cool, I'm not going to do the math placement exam because I'm going to go to music school. And so I decided to go. And the whole plan was that I was going to be a lawyer. And I understood that, music school was a very competitive, undergrad to have. And, they talk about like music school students going to med school and, some of these professional programs in their graduate studies. And so that was the action plan. But as you know from my bio, I had a very hard time in university. And, when I reflect back on it now, like, I had a lot of shame around it for a long time, for many, many years. Even once I got out of university and was still like out in my field trying to like feel like I could be enough without it. It was something that I really struggled with for a long time, but I have really learned to kind of have a little bit more compassion for myself, because I was going through a lot. We're seeing people learn about that right now. Like, everyone's talking about like the pandemic. They're like, oh, like, don't worry, it's a pandemic. And I kind of hope actually that this like sort of compassion that we are offering to ourselves and to each other is something that we'll remember later on when the pandemic's over. If someone's like slow to answer you or they're not the best mood, it's like, maybe they're not going through a pandemic, but maybe they have something else. And I think that was, the case for me. I kind of bounced around a few programs, and I couldn't really find anything that really fit for me, but I was quite the athlete in my first couple of years in university, and I actually really wanted to be on the men's basketball team. So that was kind of my primary sport, actually. And then in the training leading up to it, I just got really into the weights part of it. I was given a program to follow, and it was like this 5-day thing, and I found the reward of like, putting the extra weight on and being stronger and stronger. I found that so, empowering. And I also think, again, when I circle back to that linkage I had with like maleness and strength, I think that even then, like, there was just something about this that, made me really drawn to it. And I don't say that to say that women can't lift weights. I just want to make that caveat. But it was definitely a stereotype that I had kind of come to accept. So, I was probably 3 years into university, not in my third year though, but 3 years in. And I remember it's funny, it was actually this time of year, because it was a St. Patrick's Day weekend, and I wanted to go to the gym before I got shit-faced and ate like Sal's poutine and pizza on the way home and all this stuff. Felt like I should get a good workout in.
Yeah, I do that now, not for the drinking binge, but like when I know I'm going on a eating spree, I'm gonna get that workout in to just like try and balance out the evil I do.
So that was my what I was trying to do. It was a Saturday, I remember it, because the gym at Memorial University closed at like 6 o'clock. And I was like, well, shit, like, how am I supposed to go to the gym now? So I called Good Life, which was nearby. And so the guy on the front desk says, we'll let you in for free, whatever. There's nobody here Saturday night. So when I get there, he is like sharing with me his news that he's getting off the front desk soon because he's gotten hired as a personal trainer. And I should apply for a job. I can take his job, and then I'll have a free gym membership.
How random.
So, Yeah. So drop in my resume, and then they call me and they say, you've got all this like athletic stuff going on. Why didn't you apply to be a trainer? And it's really funny, because when I think of where I am now, and we'll get there, but I just really didn't believe that I could. I really didn't think I was capable. I didn't think I was qualified.
That is hilarious.
Yeah. And again, right, hindsight is so 2020. I think many times we can be at the precipice of something really powerful in our life and just say, like, I can't do this, But anyway, I did it. So I started working as a personal trainer, and, all of a sudden my coursework went from being like, oh, personal training is flexible, I can still be in school, to like, wow, I'm really enjoying this. I'm going to take a semester off. I'm just going to take, I'm going to take whatever off. And then next thing you know, I was coming to terms with my gender identity. And that led to a disruption, I'll say, in my studies, but not in a bad way. Like, I think you only have so much energy to give. And I had to give my energy to exploring who I was and how to, grow into that person.
Wow, that's incredible. And I've known you from the physical fitness side for so long. It's hard to imagine that like imposter syndrome getting in there to say like, I can't do this. Why would I do this? And so now you've been doing that for 10 years.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And what you've become, right? Like, I mean, that's another thing that you share with people on your journey on social media is your training, the clients that you're training. You had a wonderful story with, was it Paul?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That just melted my heart every time you did a post.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I can see on my little thumbnail, but we can't see it on the screen up here. I'm just going to turn. I mean, look at all those certificates on the wall, like that, right? That's me. I did that, and I didn't think I could. Yeah, this guy. But yeah, my client Paul. It's really funny. Again, you talk about like some of these expectations and stuff. Like, I never thought I would be training a client who started at the gym at 93 and stayed around until 96. And, in addition to that, I never anticipated it having such a imprint on my life, to the point that when he passed away in this fall, like I was in a heavy, heavy state of grief leading up to his death and following it as well. And I think it was a really powerful experience for me, not to use an older man as inspiration for him, because I think that's what happens a lot. People are like, oh my God, if he's doing it, I can. And I think like if that gets you going, that's really great. But there was just something about Paul and his determination and the fact that he just like made a decision to do it, and also that he kind of like took joy in it, and also that he like kind of didn't give a shit. And I thought, he was a really cool role model in that way. And it became this very special relationship. I ended up being able to spend his birthday with him at his place a couple times, like, to have been close enough to him when he passed away, to have visited him in his home leading up to his last few days. I just never envisioned that personal training. Again, this job where I wear sweatpants and like kind of yell at people sometimes, not really, but sometimes, to grow into this really like connective relationship is something that I don't think that you expect in that realm of physical fitness. And what I find so fascinating about that is actually that I find that connection piece is something that I have with a lot of people in a lot of different spaces. You just talked about how I was sharing and bring people along with my journey. There is something, that draws me to do that.
You're just one of those people. Like, you're very charismatic. You're an excellent speaker. I don't want to say like everyone's like your friend, but it kind of is. Like, you're just very inclusive in every way that makes people want to care about your journey and come along with you, which is the perfect formula for social media. And speaking of social, so a few years ago, and I used to come up and visit here in Nova Scotia once a year or so, and now it's been a couple years, but on one of the last trips, you told me that you were thinking about dipping your toe in the entrepreneurial field, and now here we are. Tell me about what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I've launched into this thing called Social Sweat Club that I have like no clue what I'm doing. But we're figuring it out. Yeah. I keep hearing that more and more. Everyone's like, yeah, same. So it's a fresh venture. It's only a month old. But it has been like bubbling up and marinating for like forever. You know, it's so funny, like sorting through things in the house, finding all these notebooks where I've like written about it over and over and over again, just in, like little notes here and there. It's been top of mind for a while, but again, didn't think I could do it. And you know, this is a big takeaway for today. Didn't think I could do it, doing the thing right now, but also like didn't really know what it was going to look like. And you know, I didn't, just like I got certifications and stuff to become a more qualified or more comfortable with my offerings as a personal trainer, I've had to put time and energy into learning, you know, what I need to do in order to do what I'm doing. So Social Sweat Club is a product to me of the barriers that I have seen in the fitness industry and wanting to make it what I want it to be and make it what it is for me. So like if I can kind of qualify that a little bit, you know, I've spent the majority of my career working in big box gyms. Two in particular, and I often get a lot of feedback from people who want to exercise or have dabbled in it or whatever, that they don't feel comfortable in certain spaces. They feel like they're being ogled. They, you know, don't like the atmosphere or whatever. They don't feel like they have the know-how. They don't feel very confident. And then layer that, I think with my experience transitioning and starting to speak to folks who were transgender who wanted to go to the gym and realizing that now suddenly have this whole other layer. I mean, the gym can be terrifying for most people on the best of days.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Yeah.
The gym for fear.
Yeah, it's really more common than we realize. You know, it's funny. Sometimes I have these conversations with people, and the people who don't have an issue in those spaces are always people who are kind of like, what? That's what we call privilege. but it's, yeah, when I transitioned, I was lucky to work in a gym that had a staff bathroom. So when I wanted to work out, I went to the single stall by myself, changed my clothes, went out and did my thing. And at the time, I was wearing a chest binder, which was something that, you know, prior to my surgery on my chest, I was able to flatten out my breasts as best as I possibly could. And this was something that made me extremely self-conscious. However, because of my build, the chest binder didn't really present a lot of issues for me when I engaged in physical activity. But for anybody who has a larger body, when you all of a sudden put on this thing, which is basically like a sausage wrap, like you're like Spanx on steroids. It's like it does the trick, but it's hard on you. Like, you know, it is horrible, but it's like something that you take on because it's like the alternative is worse. You know, there's so many people who would say, I want to go to the gym, but I can't work out in a binder. But I also can't go without it. So, like, you know, what do? How do I belong? And we look at things like folks who are non-binary. You know, it's very heavily gendered, the change areas, et cetera, et cetera. So the common experience in most physical fitness spaces that we know and are very familiar with is that they're not for everybody. And I really believe that everybody should enjoy fitness because I do.
I do.
Yeah.
And you don't think about it being limiting like that. Like, to me, that's not a reason I've ever gone to the gym. I don't feel confident at the gym. I could use the like cardio machines or I don't know what you call them, but they're machines that do like the weightlifting for you. So like you get on, though I don't, what do you call those?
I don't know. It's funny. Like, I would have called it like a Nautilus machine, but Nautilus is like a brand. But I think you call it like a plate loaded or weight stack.
That's right. Yeah. So like it's guided for you. You adjust the weight, but it's not free weights. I wouldn't be caught dead near the free weights not because I had anything wrong with it. I was too in my own head about it. I didn't know what weight I would be doing. I didn't want to look silly, and the people over there always look so serious in their workout that I felt like I really had to force myself to go into the gym and work out. I didn't have the equipment at home. I needed to go somewhere. And it was I got more and more comfortable the more I went. And I even eventually did, like, when it wasn't busy in the weight area, I'd go pick up some small ones and start doing things. But it was a constant self-talk thing. Like, okay, it's fine. Just pick up the weights. Fine. Okay, you got the weights. Okay, now we're just going to do like 15. And then, like, it was like, if you could have heard the inner monologue of me doing these things. And I totally get why people even just from an unconfidence level, not even thinking about the gender constructs and so much that we talk about today and that so many of us have taken for granted.
Yeah, it's huge, right? So it's, it's that. And then what I find is funny, you mentioned about me being inclusive earlier, is that like, I find that one of the things kind of in line with what I experienced in the moments that led to my talk on the Tedx stage is that once I started to experience and become aware of oppression, it's like I couldn't unsee it. And it wasn't only my own, but it was like how other people are experiencing it. And I don't say that to say that like I'm an expert, because obviously I only know my own experience. I can't speak to other experiences and other forms of oppression that people see. But what I do find is that now I'm able to hear it and appreciate it and say, well, I don't get it, but I know that it's valid, because I know a lot of people don't get me, and I want them to know that's valid too. So in having these conversations and realizing that there's a lot of limits there, the other thing that's been really important to me is also access. And I think about access, that's coming up a little bit more in discussion now, which I think is so important. I think about access financially. So gyms, again, like, we often tell, it's, physical activity is often supported by like mental health initiatives. It's in the school systems that people have this physical literacy by going to gym class or phys ed. And, it's everywhere. And people are always saying, you should exercise, go do it. But then there's like this little link or breakage in the link there, where if you don't have the expertise, you don't have the money, you don't have the safety, you can't do it. And then all of a sudden, this thing that everyone is saying is so good for you is so out of your reach. So Social Sweat Club is a means of, and I'm just gonna like rhyme it off of what I said on my Instagram bio, because I think it's legit, but it's got the mandate of cultivating community connection and care. So what that means is I want to create and foster community in a physical fitness space. And by creating community, what I mean by that is creating an environment that people feel good in. So it's not like motivating people through shame. It's not making people feel inferior because they can or can't do something. It's not about restricting people because of financial access. It's not about making people feel uncomfortable or unseen because of forms or structures or regulations that don't reflect them. It's about trying to just change, like take on some quick wins that can really, really make a big difference in people's lives. And with us being in lockdown again here right now in Newfoundland and Labrador, and me losing my job, it was a really good timing for all that research I had done while I was doubting myself that I should actually do something about it. So we actually launched this virtual thing, and we don't have any overhead because I'm literally sitting in Social Sweat Club right now. It's our spare room. And so all it is the Zoom membership and a few other things. So it's pay what you want. And what I really like about that is that people can pay literally $0. They can pay $50. They can pay $10, $5, whatever they want. And it's been a really interesting thing to watch, because I'm seeing a lot of people feel very guilty and say, well, I don't have the money right now, but I'll send something across next week, whatever. And although I don't have a business plan figured out yet, and maybe this will work, maybe it won't, I don't know. But right now, it's going quite fine, because we're getting a little bit of money that's coming in. It's helping us get a better camera, ring light, that kind of stuff. But the objective here is not for Social Sweat Club to ever be a thing that is going to pay my bills, but that I will do other work, like my public speaking and other things, to support me so I can continue giving to Social Sweat Club, so Social Sweat Club can be in our community.
But this is the time you're doing the research to someone who's been doing it for 6.5 years now. What you're doing is now you're setting it up and seeing how viable the model is, so you can see what people are willing to pay for it, what's coming in, how often they're coming back, and all of that you can put into a business plan with a business model. And I hate these words, but cash flow analysis is really important. And we talk about that off camera, because that's something I have fought tooth and nail. And over the past year, I've been doing a lot of business courses and making use of resources that were out there for people. And I understand there's so much I wish I had done in the beginning that I'm implementing now and trying to catch up with what I've already done. But what you're doing is great. You're getting all of that research now by actually doing it, by seeing how many people are coming, what they're saying, what they're wanting, what they're willing to pay, how often they're willing to come. And that is going to pay tenfold for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really cool. You know, I gotta say I'm quite proud of what we've done so far. Like we kicked off, we did a fundraiser for the Single Parent Association, and we were able to send some funds their way. Then we were able to, or not able to, but we chose to give some of our earnings from the first couple of weeks we gave to the Safe Harbor Outreach Program, which is it's the only advocacy group for sex workers in the province. And one of the other things that I really wanted to do was make fitness political, because not to like muddle it, make it not fun, but I want to use my platform and say, like, because I think sometimes, again, the physical fitness realm, I feel like we can lack empathy. Because like, you gotta be tough, you gotta work hard, get up and do more or whatever. And, there's a certain attitude there that people think is present, but you can be soft and still have a kick-ass workout. And that's kind of what we're about. So I kind of like that, because sometimes I think with some of this like equity and inclusion stuff, we almost like segment into certain spaces, like the workshop, the webinar, or like Pride event or whatever it is. But realistically, like we actually need to see that showing up everywhere. And so that is in the little day-to-day places where you don't think it belongs, as well as like, okay, I'm running an event, I need to make sure, I cover all my bases. So I kind of like that we're almost like implicitly teaching or sharing our values, I should say, without necessarily being on the soapbox about it, and just kind of being like, this is what we're about. You can come along and enjoy, and again,
and
good quality.
That is a huge distinction to me. It's like, you're not preaching, you're not telling people that what you're doing is right and what they're doing is wrong. Like, this is what we're doing. Come along with us, or don't, like you said, peace out. But you're sharing it from this is how we live. This is what we get excited about. This is what we can't wait to do. Like your snowshoeing and your boil ups and everything else. And like, that's what I love to see. And I know it resonates really well with a lot of people. It's not about shaming them because they ate that piece of pizza. You love pizza and dill pickle.
Yeah, I got a pizza tattoo on my finger right here.
I did not do that.
I know, it's awful. Yeah, don't worry.
Don't. I love your joke tattoos. I have I Heart Butter on my leg, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing, and you're such a great speaker. And I know, so for me, one thing I love I will never turn down a chance to talk to high school kids about how much better life gets out of high school. Like that is something near and dear to my heart, because I hated high school. I was angry in high school because I couldn't figure myself out. I didn't know where I wanted to belong. I didn't feel like I was doing great. And I see so many kids today struggling and thinking they're not going to get anywhere and that high school is it. So I love to go in and tell people, like, I don't have a business degree. They never thought I'd amount to anything, and here I am now. So just keep your head down and get out, and then life truly begins when you get out of this school. Do you feel like right now you're talking about a lot of trans issues and advocacy, and that's something you want to get away from in your speaking career? Or is that something you're always going to want to drive home about how far you've come, how it was for you, that like, it gets better?
It's really interesting, actually. I find that that's like what people want to hear. I've been getting an increasing amount of asks, and I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of the, I'll say, like human rights discussions that have been really present in our news cycle the last year. A lot of things that are really being heard and seen, particularly related to racism. However, also a lot of things coming up about trans rights, homophobia, ableism, other things as well right now. And I find that I'm getting these asks where people want me to come in, and it's like they want me to just do this like mind dump on them, so that next time they meet a trans person, they will feel.
I've had this talk, sir. Ma'am, I am good too. I know your troubles.
I'm certified. Yeah.
Certified. Trans one communication.
Yeah. So I find that those are the kinds of things that I end up getting asked to deliver, and it's funny because I end up like not doing that, and I always get good feedback. I don't know if they're like disappointed because they didn't get the glossary of terms, but like, you ever gone to a class and the prof or teacher or whatever has just like read out terms? They're like, oh, sorry guys, this is really dry. Like, I'm not going to do that. If it's like, go look it up. So what I find myself talking about, and the more and more I do it, is not necessarily, it's funny, it's like from the lens of my lived experience as a trans person, but it's actually just general advice. And I get people coming to me and being like, oh wow, I find that so relatable. And then they realize that we're not that different. Other than the fact that my gender identity is not the same as theirs. So what I find myself talking about is like lately is like, if someone tells you that you hurt their feelings, if you don't get it or you don't think it's a big deal, doesn't mean it's not a big deal to them. Or that you can't assume everybody's needs, just like everyone can't assume your needs. Or just because you met one woman doesn't mean you know them all. Or one man doesn't mean you know them all. Or one, I don't know, pizza maker, sandwich artist, whatever. And because I find that that's what often happens, is that I feel like I'm brought in as if like, okay, this is a trans person. You're going to learn about trans people. And I'm really just talking about me. And even all the other folks that I know who are trans, non-binary, two-spirit, and so on, otherwise gender non-conforming, are not the same as me. And so the talks are growing, and there's almost this theme of resilience, of you can, of compassion that's rolled in there in what's like supposed to be a basic trans 101 kind of talk. So I think to answer your question, like, yes, I feel like I'm almost like turning into this, like, I don't want to say Tony Robbins because it's almost a little bit cliche, but it's a little bit of this like inspiration, but also it's educational as well, where people are, I find like they're going in for the takeaway, like they're going to study up and ace the exam, but the big takeaway that they're actually getting, which I really want, is that it's not that different. And that just like you should ask your friend who is trans, who just came out to you, how can I support you? What pronouns do you use? Is it cool if I call you this? Do you not want me to say this anymore? Whatever. I would hope that you would say to any other friend, regardless of their gender, what do you need from me right now? Or whatever it is. So you learn a lot, like when you live a life where you deviate from what is considered to be normative, and you have to start to inform people of what your needs are and have those conversations. I think you start to realize, like, I just think about the fact that if you are not living like that you're just kind of living a series of assumptions. You graduate high school, you're supposed to go to university, get a degree, get married, have a baby, go do this, go do that. This is how you have sex. This is what you do. People, and this is like a weird example, but like, I just like know stories of people who have bad sex lives because they don't talk about what they want, what they like. And, it's like, I feel like I'm just in this position where it's like the way that I live my life is not on TV and it's not in books. So I've had to figure it out, and I've had to tell other people about how to do that. I don't know. I don't like onions raw, but I like them when they're sauteed. Like, everybody's different. So that's really what I end up talking about. And I think that that's actually very universal advice.
That's really interesting, like that the talks that you're doing, or the people that are having you in, is that they just want they just want to take away of like, okay, now I get it, and then go on with life.
Yeah, they're like, yeah. So they want me to be like, this is transgender, this is cisgender, this is what it needs to be, this is this. Like, you see the presentations where people do like the genderbread person, where it's like a gingerbread person, and they're like, okay, this is like romantic attraction, this is sexual orientation, this is gender identity, blah, blah, blah. And the terminology is important, but I think I will say a little bit selfishly, as someone who's been speaking about this now for a few years, it's like, I'm ready to move the conversation beyond like, hey, I'm transgender, we exist. Like, this is what's up.
Thank you for seeing me.
Yeah. I'm ready to have the more nuanced conversations and share the learnings around privilege, around communication, consent, whatever it is. It's really fascinating. And I think that there is actually a wealth of knowledge that comes from being put in a position where you have to really navigate the world in the way that I have. And
150%. And just like scratching on the surface of not realizing, I didn't realize what your topic was for the TED Talk, but we could do, a whole episode just talking about your unique perspective. And other people, both ways, people who have transitioned from male to female and how they were treated before and how they're treated now, trans aside, just from that experience. Like, what an incredibly interesting conversation that would be.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, Alicia, because what I found, and I say this in my talk, but I grew up like very religious, and again, like very much like this is the way things are. This is how it's going to be. You're a young woman. This is what's up. And I think as a young woman, I learned to accept certain things and not question them. I don't know if a boy likes you, he's gonna like punch you or like make fun of you, and like and then boys turn to grown ass men, and that shit happens. And I'm not saying all men, but before the flags go off, and the sirens,
you're gonna get me flagged before we even get anywhere.
Someone's gonna enter the chat any minute now. But I learned to accept certain things, and even just like how I should dress, what sports I should play, what I should like to eat, what snacks I should have. Like the people talk about like girly drinks, girly music, careers, just different things. It's actually incredible how woven in to our lives it can be. And for me, growing up in this kind of like very unassuming life where I followed God's plan and everything was good and groovy until I went to university and my whole life got turned upside down. It's really incredible to see how I just accepted it. I was like, man, feminists are crazy. Like, women can vote, like, women can they can have whatever jobs they want. Like, why are they still fighting? Like, what is the problem here? And now, like, I am a rip-roaring feminist because there's like a pay gap, because people used to tell me I was strong for a girl, and now no one's like, oh, dang, you're strong for a guy. Like, I'm also sick of people asking me to move tables and chairs. Like, I spent my whole life not doing that. Ask someone else.
You had it pretty sweet.
Right? Yeah, I was like, I could kick back and relax. But just like it's amazing how much we can be shocked by something someone is doing because of how we read them. Oh, you're a plumber. Whoa, or like, oh, like you do this or whatever. Like, it's just truly incredible. And I think that the big takeaway for me was, of course, advocating for the systems to change. But something that I'm really starting to come to terms with lately myself in my career in activism is that I've gotten a lot more mileage from choosing to carve out my own niche and claiming my resilience as opposed to critiquing the systems. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't critique them, because I think it's important.
Ooh, that's gold. When I go back through this, I'm going to have to like clip that part out for sure, because that, my friend, is gold.
I got it. Right? I've been doing this for 5 years. I'm just joking. But, and I don't say that because, again, like, there are some very powerful demonstrations that have happened that have caused revolutionary things. Like, I think about specifically to the history for the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. Stonewall was a riot, which turned into the Pride Parade. So we do need that sort of demonstration and that challenge to the system. But we have Pride Parade, and we are still experiencing a lot of inequities. So we have to keep that push going. And while we push and while we revolt, that we also have that choice that we can do what we can to get by. And I think that that's something that's really cool in kind of my growing and my learning through this, is that there is the capacity to flourish even when the odds are stacked against you. It's like, even when they're
making another one
nuggets. I got more nuggets.
Those eggs of knowledge.
But it's true, and obviously everybody's experience is different. But I found a lot of learning in just kind of going by the beat of my own drum in many ways, choosing that this is what being a man is going to be like for me. This is what, being a personal trainer or a entrepreneur or whatever is. It's just doing it my way. And there's a lot of power to be claimed in that. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's truly changed my life in a lot of ways. And I'm there, in the trenches in a lot of these big demonstrations. But I'm very reluctant to just sit back and critique the status quo without trying to take action to do something for myself and to do what I can with what I've got.
Oh God, I could just talk to you about so many more things. I know we're creeping up on an hour, so I do want to wrap it up, but like, we're going to have to do another one, because we haven't even gotten into like your upbringing and your cool family background journey that you've been on, and that's a whole other topic again.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to throw out some rapid fire questions just because I thoroughly love them.
Let's do it.
All right. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had a egg white breakfast sandwich with Lou's applewood smoked back bacon, which I really love. So good. On a sesame seed bagel, Compliments brand. And I like to do this thing where I take a like Tupperware container that is like this shape, so it's like the right size to go on a bagel, and then I put nonstick cookie spray on it, and then I dump egg whites in it, and then I just pop that in the microwave. And so then I get this puck of egg, and then I put it on my toasted bagel and my bacon, and then I put Dijon mustard on it. So,
I love how insanely detailed that answer was. Love it. That's why we're such good friends.
Well, it's like, you know what? There was 30 grams of protein in that breakfast. So, I mean, like, it's like,
Oh my God, that was amazing.
good shit.
If you could have anyone as your dream client or collaborator, who would it be?
Oh, man. I don't know. I feel it's so funny. I feel like my dream client is my client Paul, which is like really sad. Like it gets tugging on my heartstrings. I mean sad because that's my choice. I mean, like I'm gonna get sad. But like,
I guess it depends on what lens you're looking at too. Like, who would be the dream person you would get to train? And I mean anyone.
I think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Because I also get to hang out with her. That's the cool thing about being a personal trainer. You get to know some pretty badass people.
And if people are not familiar with who that is, who is she?
So yeah, she is a up and coming. Like I really hope she runs for presidency in the United States. I hope she does. I don't know if she is or if she plans to, but she's a congresswoman, and I think she's from the Bronx. She's definitely from New York, and she is like the people's person. She was a server. She comes from pretty humble beginnings. She is a woman of color, and I think it's just like she's out there. She is like calling people on their shit. She was really getting up in Trump's business, and I think making them sweat a little bit. So I think that she would be really cool. She's always dropping some hot tea on her social media. So I would love to hang out with her.
Love it. I'm gonna have to look her up for sure. I think I know who you're talking about, but I'm gonna have to have a look and see if that's who it is.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask one question I have there was about business, but you haven't been in business long enough for me to ask you this. So I'm gonna table this one until the next time we're able to chat.
Yeah.
What would be the one biggest piece of, I don't want to say advice or motivation you would give people trying to meet their fitness goals?
Okay. I've got a couple pieces here.
Okay, I'm gonna sound like that too.
Yeah. You're gonna loop that one.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because I've actually been examining my own sources of motivation lately because it's like running pretty dry, which I think is the case for many people right now. Again, because it's a heavy time. I think that there's a couple things that I think are really important. I think that it's creating like space in your life for and. I think sometimes we think about fitness or anything we're pursuing, it's like either or. It's either like you're committed or you're not. You're off or you're on. You're working out or you're on you're on the wagon or you're off the wagon. You know what I mean? And to make it sustainable, it's important to know that it's going to ebb and flow and be both. So when I'm thinking about motivation right now in terms of fitness goals, I think about compassion and I also think about discipline. So when you think about compassion, again, I think you think about that softness, and I do think about compassion in like you can have a rest today, you can have treats, you can do whatever. Like you don't have to be like 100% all in all the time. But then on that other side of it, like sometimes my compassion, or I'll allow myself to be so compassionate toward myself that next thing you know, I haven't exercised in a long time, and I don't feel good because of that. Because part of what makes me feel so good is feeling strong, is moving, is, like just feeling that energy and that sense of pride. So having the discipline to get yourself to do it is that other really important piece. But the tricky part is that oftentimes people employ shame to promote discipline. I should because I did this. or because I have to, or because my doctor said, or because, I don't look good in my clothes, or I'm ashamed of whatever. And while it can be a very powerful motivator, I think it also really like entrenches these experiences or relationships that we have with fitness. And so I'm trying to, or what I'm suggesting, and also working on myself, is developing a way that you can practice discipline, whether it's having a routine that you have a certain time or that you do it a certain amount, number of days per week or whatever it is, so that you have the structure that's consistent, you can stick with it, and then have compassion toward yourself along the way. If your goals don't turn out the way that you thought they would, or if you're having a hard time or whatever else.
Because that's what we've been talking about this whole time, about life and goals you may have thought did not turn out how you thought they would or wanted them to, but sometimes you still end up somewhere great.
Yeah.
Well, my friend, this has been phenomenal. I love everything you're doing. I love you. I love following you online. If you want to check him out, it's Coach Woodsy on Instagram and Social Sweat Club also. You definitely don't want to miss out for that. Where else can they find you hanging out online?
I think that's about it right now. I'm not very active on Facebook. I have a fledgling little website in my Squarespace app that will soon be live. But I would say Instagram is the place for me. I like it the best. So
yeah, you'll find me hanging out there too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and reliving all these like super fun memories and getting to know so much about you that I didn't even after all these years.
Yeah, of course. I know. I gotta get this finished. So I
know, and we really need that bubble to just come back so we can change provinces, at least on this side of the country.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, my friend. I look forward to following along with everything you're doing, and I hope you guys will enjoy it too. And we'll see you on the next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and share with a friend. Tune in next week for entrepreneurs Michelle McCann and Sam Medor.